Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I am Sean Anderson, Most Valuable Podcast, and the upcoming segment is from our full Fast Break podcast that we recorded. And if you do want to check out that full podcast, head over to Blog Talk Radio/The Fast Break. You'll be able to find the full podcast over there. But we're moving on now to the Toronto Raptors and Kyle Lowry in that situation because Kyle Lowry has now declined his player option. He said he's a free agent. So not only are we going to be talking about where he can land, I want to start off this conversation talking about Kyle Lowry and really what he is valued at, because Kyle Lowry, in my opinion, is a top point guard in the Eastern Conference. And looking at point guards in general, I mean, they're so valuable. And we saw the contract that Mike Conley got. I mean, how valuable is a player like Kyle Lowry, Ricky?
He's a starting point guard. Like, he's a guy that you can go out and say, I am confident as him in my starting point guard. I kind of feel like that's a slap in the face just to say it like that.
Yes, it did sound a little.
He's a guy where it's nothing like, oh, I'm bringing him in to be my backup. No, you're bringing him in to be your starting point guard and to be one of the guys that contributes to your team to the goal of winning an NBA championship.
And then Dave, looking at this, obviously he's very important, like Ricky's saying. He's a guy that you can push towards an NBA championship. I mean, he's a 2 or a 3.
I mean, when he's not being a trash bro in the playoffs, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
a trash bro. I like that.
if you have another star player, if he's not your number one option, I mean, he can be a really good number 2 option.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So looking at this number 2 and number 3 option, I mean, obviously very valuable, like Ricky's saying. How much does this hurt the Toronto Raptors if he does not re-sign it, does not come back to them on a better deal for him?
Oh, it's huge. It's absolutely huge because, well, we've watched DeMar DeRozan just become one of the most efficient mid-range shooters since Kobe Bryant. Like, it's really been a lot of Kyle Lowry facilitating, making everyone else around him a better player that's allowed DeMar to kind of build up himself, build up his game. And the one thing that I think is, like, if you take Kyle Lowry out of there, I know we watched for a stretch of games with DeMar DeRozan without Kyle out there, but I think in the long run, it would be a huge negative for this team, and it would be a huge negative for, it'll be a step back for everybody else in that roster. Even if he comes back on a large, like a max deal contract kind of a thing, like that might eliminate some other options for them. So I feel like it puts them in a really tough position, but at the same time, he has earned the money, and I don't want him to take less money.
Yeah, I don't want him to take less money at all. I mean, he deserves to get paid. I mean, $12 million for a guy like that, especially who's 31.
And that's the thing is, like, yeah, he never has, like, gone a season without getting better. It's always been, he's like the opposite of what most people expect is like, oh, well, you hit your prime at like, 25, 26, and that's who you are for the rest of your game. No, that's not Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry's gotten better and better and better the longer he's played. So it's kind of a weird case.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting better and better, and that's the thing that I'm more. I mean, it's kind of like Isaiah Thomas too, but in less of a case because Kyle Lowry was a role player and he was, and then he became a starter, but he wasn't a great starter. But then as he, like you said, he got older, he got better and better. Whereas Isaiah Thomas was kind of forced into a star role, and then he just completely thrived. But again, looking at this, I mean, this whole thing, I mean, Kyle Lowry can change a franchise. I mean, he can take your team to that next level. And we talked about in the draft lottery scenarios that, Philadelphia could be a team that, could just be a playoff team. And that's the thing that I want to get to, because Jake Neverman on Twitter was like, hey, this guy's from Philly, went to Nova. Could Kyle Lowry fit on the Philadelphia 76ers as one of the places that I'm throwing out?
I kind of feel like just saying like the whole, hey, he's from Philly. We also said
we did that about Paul George.
It's
and Kevin Durant.
We also said that, hey, Kevin Durant, he's from D.C., gonna go to the Wizards.
Derrick Rose from Chicago. He's a free agent, guys.
Oh, wait a second. Kevin Durant knew the dysfunction of that team, although they are where they are right now. Knew the dysfunction of that team and didn't go there. I think going to the 76ers does Kyle Lowry no help. And it's one of the things where the draft lottery for the Sixers, because you mentioned that's why I'm going to harp on it a little bit, the draft lottery is going to dictate what the 76ers do in free agency. Because if they get, like we talked about earlier in the podcast, if they get 2 picks, if they get the swap and they get the higher pick because of the Kings, you can look at it to where, oh, no, we can get a point guard. Like if they get the first or second pick, no, we got Fultz or Ball. We don't need to spend the money on a Kyle Lowry. Or even if they go, hey, we're at the blah, blah, blah pick. We can get a De'Aaron Fox. We don't need to spend the money on a Kyle Lowry.
But they do have a lot of money in Philadelphia.
They do have money.
And I mean, I don't know, would you, looking at that, let's take away the rookie for right now. Looking at Joel Embiid, Dario Saric, Ben Simmons, and then Kyle Lowry. Does that make them a playoff team?
It TLC helps. Also.
It helps.
And Rocco. I mean, that's the thing is like you've got a bunch of guys who can contribute.
I can't wait to the comment section ripping on the TJC.
TLC.
TLC.
I say, who you think I'm talking about?
I thought you were talking about TJ McConnell. I thought you were talking about TJ McConnell for a second. I apologize.
No, I'm talking about the guy who actually can shoot the ball. And that's what they need. And I think the problem with my problem with seeing Kyle Lowry potentially going to the 76ers is the timelines don't match up. You have a 31-year-old point guard on a team of a bunch of kids in their early 20s, and I don't think that he wants to go there to mentor a bunch of kids to make a playoff effort in the next 3 years.
No, that's win a championship.
Yeah, I'd say that's just I can't see that lining up with his vision going from a known commodity in DeMar DeRozan and these Toronto Raptors continual playoff perennials versus the unknown of guys who haven't played a game. Sean, what do you want? You're dancing.
No, but does he want to win a championship?
Yes.
Because what I want to ask is with how old he is he more worried about the money? Because
this would be his first max contract.
This is the thing. He's denying this option because if he took this money, then the Raptors can still afford players. The Raptors can still bring in players. I mean, Kyle Lowry for $12 million. That's your second piece. That's a bargain. So now he's doing this for the money. Yeah. I'm not saying that he doesn't want to win a championship, but also maybe he does see the fun in possibly going to a team, mentoring, being in his hometown, seeing such a young team in Simmons and Embiid, playing with a faster team. I mean, do you think that it'd be smart? And with Philadelphia, with so many picks, I mean, maybe they do go after a player like a Jason Tatum. I know people were loving loving the idea of Jason Tatum to Philly.
Yeah.
Say they draft a guy like Jason Tatum, and then with a ton of assets that they have, maybe they go and get just a young backup point guard to mentor under Lowry. Do you think that could be a possibility? Maybe they trade back into the first round and get a young point guard, or just draft a young point guard. Do you see that possibility?
I don't. Like, the only thing, and this is being like true Philadelphia, just what the fuckery. Like, this would be a Colangelo move, would be, all right, so we're going to go get Kyle Lowry in free agency, and we're going to trade our picks for more veteran players and push our window to right now for no reason. And that's the only thing I
wouldn't say it's no reason. But
there's no reason to rush the process.
Well, you can look at it as one of our big concerns Sean and I had in the first segment with them. If you think that the injury window with Embiid, especially Embiid, is a smaller window than once was, you might want to push that button. That's why I'm saying it's not as crazy as it may sound.
But then if Philly's not the right fit if for Kyle Lowry, what place do you think could be the right fit for Kyle Lowry?
Because the Spurs.
So we just talked about them.
The Spurs.
Who needs guard help?
Well, and not just that. You have Ginobili off the books this year. If I'm the Spurs, I'm sorry. If he wants to come back, no, I'm not. Like,
really?
I'll bring it back at like a veteran minimum. I'm not going to pay you 14.
Pop's going to get
what I'd rather do if I'm the Spurs, take the $14 million that you paid Ginobili, what you said while we were in the middle of segments, go to Paul Gasol and say, it's been nice.
It's time for you to move on.
Go and decline the option. That opens up about just over $16 million, and you can package that money along with the $3 million you're going to save, or you're going to add to that from Patty Mills moving on and getting a big contract, and getting Kyle Lowry. Because we talked about it in the last segment. You have the
retooling
Kawhi Leonard. No, Kawhi Leonard locking down Kevin Durant. If you can add another two-way guard to not lock down, but be that threat to Steph Curry and take out another player on that Warriors team when you play them again, hopefully in the playoffs, it just helps your chances.
I mean, I think the idea of Kyle Lowry to the Spurs is very interesting, but do you have any problems with Kyle Lowry to the Spurs?
I got a couple problems with what he said about the Spurs, because I know the fans do. And that's the disrespect to Manu Ginobili.
I'm trying to go with the money.
Manu got paid for the first time in his career only because the 76ers threw a contract at him last offseason, and he'd been criminally underpaid up to that point. So I could see him coming back for like $7 to $9 million, probably not 14 again. Because again, limited minutes, but still, don't disrespect him by Pop saying.
I would take the money.
He's going to use him up till he's dead.
I would take the money and throw it at Kyle Lowry before I threw it at Manu Ginobili.
Pop is a loyal man to his people, and he's gotten everything he can out of them.
There's something too. I mean, you can possibly get rid of David Lee. He's got a player option there if he does want to move on and see if he can get more money. Because I mean, he wasn't awful.
No, he wasn't terrible
with the Spurs. So I mean, maybe he can get more money. Yeah, maybe he can decline that player option, go try to get more money somewhere else. If Paul declines that money, he can possibly go get money somewhere else. So, I mean, that frees up about 17
You
mil.
know who I hear is looking to give out money to people? 76ers.
So you think the 76ers is the best
They need
fit?
another center. No, I'm just saying, like, for Paul Gasol. I was laughing about that. Like, go sign David Lee and Paul Gasol.
Talking strictly Kyle Lowry.
I think the Sixers are the most intriguing pick because of the hometown story. I think the Spurs would be cool because of, we want to watch them get that one more piece to keep challenging. We want that that combat between the Warriors and the Spurs to continue on, because I feel like what we're seeing is like we get short little bits of it, and I want them to be really competitive. I want this to be like the Western Conference showdown for the next couple of years, because I love watching Kawhi play. I love watching the Warriors play. It's just a matter of like, I think we all know in the bottom of our hearts that Kawhi doesn't have enough with him right now to put up a fair fight against them. So I want to see something move to the Spurs. If it's not the Spurs and it's not the Sixers, though, I think he's just going to stay. I think he's just going to take the free money and come home.
I would say that the Raptors, although Raptor fans are going to hate me to say this, I would not stay with the Raptors at all costs.
Do you think he would, or do you think that they would be stupid to offer him a max?
I think for Kyle Lowry, I'm looking at it from his standpoint.
Okay.
Why would I want to stay on a team that has proven to, like you mentioned, the Trash Bros? We can't even beat Cleveland, and it's one of those things we can't even get that far because we choke in the playoffs. Why would I want to stay?
Just last year, though, they took them deep in the series. I mean, none of us thought they would win it.
It was 6 games.
But it's still...
And 2 more games than anybody else this year.
And it wasn't really Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan that was the fault. Why they lost.
It was the greatest offseason signing since ever.
Why would I stay here? If he stays in Toronto, then it's because of what you mentioned.
Money.
Maybe it's because of the money. If he stays in Toronto, it's because of the money. I think that his best bet would most likely be the Spurs, but depending on how things work, I honestly think that he needs to get out of the Eastern Conference. And part of me feels like it doesn't matter where you go because the Warriors are just as dominant as LeBron James.
I was about to say, do you think it's interesting saying that you should go to the Western Conference to get some relief, even though you're like, no, the Warriors are going to get challenged in the Western Conference.
That's why I think the Spurs, because if you go to the Spurs with Kyle Lowry have a better chance at beating the Warriors than any team in the East, even Boston with Kyle Lowry.
I think it'd be interesting. I mean, I don't think Toronto's done. I mean, you just need something there where you need someone who could step up. And
DeMar Carroll can't stop LeBron
anymore.
At all. It was one series because of a system on the Hawks. That was it.
Yeah, you need some small forward help, but DeMar Carroll's going to be on the books till 2018, 2019.
What an awful contract.
Jonas Valanciunas isn't bad. I mean, he's not great, but he's not
going to win you a series.
No, the contract isn't. The contract's fine for the player he is. Serge is going to be off the books. Pat Patterson's going to be off the books. You look at PJ Tucker; he's going to be off the books as well. So they're going to have the money there, especially with Kyle Lowry getting rid of his $12 million. So and just putting that back towards his contract. So I think it's going to be interesting seeing what happens. Do you think
there's a wild card team who's going to offer?
Well, the thing that I was looking at, and there's 2 teams that I was looking at. One of them was going to be the Utah Jazz, but I totally forgot about the Gobert extension, so that just totally tossed them out of there. The one team that I think could be interesting, Danilo Gallinari has a player option. He would be denying that. And then you look at that Nuggets team. Maybe the Nuggets would be very interesting to bring him over as a point guard, because you look at Moutier, he wasn't that great as a point guard.
He definitely didn't step forward.
Yeah, you need point guard help, and you have Jokic, who's fantastic, and a very, very cheap contract. I mean, you could toss money at him. Adding that could really bolster Jamal Murray's progression there. I mean, Wilson Chandler's a good player, and having him as your starting small forward isn't terrible. Maybe he could turn into something like DeMar DeRozan. Not saying he would, or being at that level, but could be something where Kyle Lowry's now the star, but Wilson Chandler can help bolster that. So I think the Nuggets are interesting, and the final team I want to mention is the Minnesota Timberwolves, because you look at that, they need point guard help. If they go Jonathan Isaac there, I think that'd be interesting. I mean, they have a lot of cap space, $77 million next year, and that's that's with Brandon Rush off the board, Shabazz Muhammad off the board if they don't re-sign him, which they probably will. Adrian Payne would be off the board. Amir Kapski, I don't know if they'll bring him back. And I already mentioned Adrian Payne. So I mean, and Jordan Hill isn't guaranteed for 4.8 mil. So I think it'd be very interesting. The most expensive contract they have is Ricky Rubio, and there's talks about him moving. So I think it'd be very interesting to bring Kyle Lowry over to the Timberwolves.
I almost made the joke of when you said, "Is there a wild card team out there?" I went, "Sure, the Bulls will be stupid enough to try to throw a max contract at him."
I mean, would it be
obviously
stupid?
that's a joke. Well, I'm just saying, hey, it's a
really
veteran.
that stupid?
It would be catastrophic to our team.
All right, I want to end
But
this.
I want to throw out one team that I think would be idiotic on both sides if he went there, and that's Indiana. Because
I was going to mention Indiana. Yeah.
It would be idiotic for Kyle Lowry to go somewhere that A, is not going to compete with LeBron, and B, Paul George will be like, nah, we can't. Bye, Kyle,
He might leave
and I'm gone. And it'd be dumb for Indiana to spend that much money on Kyle Lowry. Although he's a good player, spend that money when Paul George is probably leaving anyways.
Well, I think it's just. I don't know if the problem isn't. Kyle. The problem isn't Jeff Teague on the team. It's the problem is their backup
Jeff Teague's even
point
an
guard.
unrestricted free agent this summer. So are they going to bring him back?
That's interesting. I totally forgot about his contract. So I'll just because George Hill. They traded Hill for Teague, and okay, that makes sense. Same contract. I want to end it on what is the most likely ending spot for Kyle Lowry, and which one would you want him to go to? So I think we're all going to say the most likely is Toronto.
Yeah, I think he's going back. I think this was purely just a money, and it's his only and best chance to get a max contract.
I'm going to say both being the Spurs.
Whoa.
Really?
Both being the Spurs.
I think the most likely is Toronto. I think the most interesting would be Denver because I think adding a player like that who can shoot from deep, had I think one of his highest, or if not the highest, shooting percentage from three this year at 41%. Was banged up, but still, I mean, this is a guy that's an all-star. I think adding him to that team would be very interesting. Not saying that they'll make any noise or big noise in the Western Conference, but I think they would be a very interesting team, kind of like the Jazz were this year. But that's going to wrap up this Kyle Lowry segment. I know we have a lot of Raptors fans, so tell us where you think Kyle Lowry is going to end up. Do you think he's going to stay with the Raptors? But that's also going to wrap up the Fast Break podcast. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, again, don't forget to tell us what you think about Kyle Lowry, the draft lottery segments, and the Spurs segments. Also, if you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, thank you so much for the download. We appreciate it. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to Most Valuable Podcast. And Ricky, that's a nice t-shirt you got there.
It's a great t-shirt.
Look at that. We got nice t-shirts and hopefully coming soon. And if you want to see more t-shirts, head over to patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast because that helps us put more into the t-shirt designs and maybe more maybe different t-shirt designs.
We've got some designs in the pipeline.
We got the membranes going up here, but we just don't have the backflow to push out those designs. Maybe a Brock the Cock one's coming.
Maybe.
Teasing one.
Maybe.
Anyways, for Dave Oster, Ricky Widmer, I'm Sean Anderson. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Oh, shit. Oh, it's just one of our videos scared me a little bit. Don't forget to check out that one. And also don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.